Good day. We are the Group 9 and we are about to present our topic about invasive species. And the title of our topic is Let the Water Be Free. So going for a short introduction of our report, we must understand what does aquatic invasive and human invasive means. So the term aquatic invasive species refers to any fish, invertebrate, or plant species that has been introduced to an aquatic ecosystem outside of its native area. The lack of natural predators in their new environment allows populations of aquatic invasive organisms to grow. That is why they pose a threat to native species. Microorganisms, including viruses, bacteria, and parasites, also have the potential to cause significant damage to aquatic environments. Uh, Next is what is aquatic ecosystem? The term aquatic ecosystem is used to describe any type of ecosystem that is found in water. A simple definition of an aquatic ecosystem is one that is highly or primarily dependent on the presence of water, either seawater or freshwater. For humans as an invasive species, when it comes to the spreading of invasive species, humans are virtually always to the blame. People and things are able to travel to all corners of the globe thanks to industries like tourism and international trade, and they frequently transport invasive species along with them. Aquatic organisms can be transported by ships, and some have even been found in the propellers of smaller boats. Wooden shipping boxes and containers are prone to the insect infestation during international transport. Going to the subtopic of our report is about sewage. As much as we'd like to avoid it, sewage is an important consideration for every part of the world. Going to the question, what is it? Simply put it, it's water carried waste. Whether it's the stuff that leaves your toilet or the vast amounts of wash water that flow out of industrial plants or any businesses, areas, or even our homes. We all contribute to it and collectively we all have to deal with it. But what exactly is dealing with the sewage? And what is the impact of sewage on the environment? So the effects of sewage on the environment are largely negative and very impactful to any species, environment, or the bodies of water. It needs to be properly treated before it can be disposed of, usually into the ocean. There are two problems, however. If sewage is only partially treated before it is disposed of, it can contaminate water and harm huge amounts of wildlife and even our own kind. So, what do we do to prevent the contamination of bodies of water? So, the first thing, the first basic thing we should do is conserve water. Two is do not dump fats, oil, and grease down drains. And lastly, do not flush materials that are created by chemicals. Continuing to our next subtopic is about fertilizer. So what is fertilizer and how does it cause the bodies of water? So fertilizer contains chemicals that causes water pollution. Farmers uses fertilizers in their agricultural field to increase their crops production. When it's raining, chemicals in the fertilizers are flew into water. This leads to water pollution. Fertilizer contains nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus. Excess amount of nutrients leads to algal growth, and this algal uses oxygen in water, and so this is harmful for aquatic life. So how do we prevent contamination from bodies of water due to fertilizer? Uh, so the first way to prevent contamination of bodies of water is stay away from the well head and any bodies of water when mixing and loading fertilizers. It is recommended to bring water to the location where the liquid fertilizer will be mixed and loaded in a nurse tank. Second, change the location where you mix the ingredients every year within the field of application. And lastly, identify the destination of any water that may run off and research the best way to manage the fertilizers that will be used.
Good day to everyone. My name is Joshua Noel Enriquez from Group 9 and here to discuss the factory waste. Factories often dump dirty water, use chemicals and oils, sewage, and cafeteria waste directly into the ground, or into a community water source, or such as a river, lake, or stream. Waste dumped into the ground can poison the groundwater that feeds other water sources, such as wells and ponds. Electronics companies sometimes store very dangerous chemicals in underground tanks. So in many countries, these containers have leaked, contaminating the soil and groundwater with toxic chemicals. As you all know that water pollution can also harm fish and other plants and animals that live in or near the water. If we eat fish or other plants from contaminated water, it can also cause us a health problems. Polluted groundwater or irrigation water can ruin soil for growing crops, and it can poison food grown in the soil. So here are the 8 effective ways to reduce manufacturing waste. So first, we have efficient inventory management. Second, we have reduce packaging materials. Third, we have volume reduction. Fourth, we have recover, reuse, sort. Fifth, establish a preventative maintenance schedule. Sixth, label and organize the warehouse properly. 7. Adopt a closed-loop manufacturing system. And 8. And lastly, minimize water usage. So let's move on to the other topic, which is the acid rain. Rotting vegetation and erupting volcanoes release some chemicals that can cause acid rain. What most acid rain is a product of human activities. The biggest sources are, first, coal-burning power plants, factories, and automobiles. Acid rain has many ecological effects, especially on lakes, streams, wetlands, and other aquatic environments. Acid rain makes such waters more acidic, which results in more aluminum absorption from soil, which is carried into lakes and streams. That combination makes water toxic to crayfish, clams, fish, and other aquatic animals. Of course, there is a way to reduce acid rain, which is to produce energy without using fossil fuels. Instead, people can use renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power. Renewable energy sources help reduce acid rain because they produce much less pollution. And that's all for my discussion, and thank you.
Hi guys, John here, third and final reporter of Group 9, and I'm here to discuss with you an additional 2 factors that affect the quality of marine life and its ecosystem. Let's start it off with oil spillage. So I guess I can confidently say that we are no longer strangers to the idea of how when we found new resource, we tend to be reliant on that specific resource for days, years, or even decades to come. And so is the case with oil or petroleum in general, which since the early 1960s we had intensified needs for oil. And this is where oil spillage comes into play. So what is an oil spillage? An oil spill can be characterized by either intentional or unintentional leakage of petroleum to a large body of water. It became a persisting issue since the 1960s due to increased demand and intensified petroleum exploration. So now let us head over to some cause and effects of oil spillage. So I have written here 4 causes, and here are the following. The first one being accidents, such as when a ship has either a technical malfunction or the ship itself just sunk. Natural disasters where uh, oil is carried into a large body of water. Illegal dumpers is when used oil is discarded into body of water. And wars is just like accidents, similar scenario where when a ship is sunk, of course, it has the tendency to release its oil into the ocean. And now let us head over to some effects. First one being death of marine life, of course. This is marine life is not really used to having oil into their ecosystem, which means they have a tendency to be poisoned by it. Second effect being hazard to for fur-bearing animals. So fur-bearing animals like seals and birds, when they come into contact with oil or petroleum, they have a tendency to it have the tendency to ruin their coat, which is supposed to be water resistant. Once oil sticks to their fur, it it just wouldn't repel water anymore. And the last effect being the area becomes uninhabitable. So it becomes uninhabitable because just like how I mentioned in the first effect that oil may be poisonous to some other marine lives. So now let us head over to how to prevent oil spillage. This is not really how to prevent, it's more like how to contain oil spillage. The first one being floating barriers for oil or booms. And the next, boats that scoop up oil or skimmers, sponges that absorb oil or sorbents, and C2 burning. C2 burning, it refers to how present oil once it just got spilled, so it's just on the surface of the water. So what they do is that they burn the oil from the surface of the water since it hasn't submerged yet, and it is easy to remove it. All right, now let us introduce what a water hyacinth is and how it is related to our topic. So hyacinths have been introduced since the early 1900s on regions such as Africa and Asia. Hyas- so what is a water hyacinth? Water hyacinth is a type of flowering and free-floating plant that has been considered invasive since early 1900s and is present in all countries except Antarctica. The plant is capable of both sexual and asexual reproduction and can double its population within 5 to 15 days. So, when we say sexual reproduction, water hyacinths are capable of this by producing seeds through flowers. And as for their asexual reproduction properties, they use budding through vegetation systems. Now let us discuss why water hyacinths are a threat. So water hyacinths are a serious threat to the ecosystem as it limits the quality of life for both people and the ecosystem that resides in the affected body of water. So it affects lake hydrology by increasing evapotranspiration of lake water as well as it creates favorable environments for mosquitoes. And of course, these mosquitoes sometimes carry diseases such as malaria and bilharzia. And of course, not to mention since they reproduce rapidly, this mat of water hyacinths can affect recreation and tourism as well as fishing, transportation, and irrigation. As for the marine ecosystem, hyacinths affect the water quality by blocking the sunlight and oxygen levels in the water. So now let us head over to how to prevent the spread of water hyacinths. Since water hyacinths are capable of both methods of reproduction, there is no specific way to completely prevent the spread of such plant. But recently, there have been ways to control the spread of plant, which includes physical, chemical, and biological methods. Let us go through all of them. With physical methods being harvesting, cutting, removal with machines or by hands, which we can say is like manual method. And as for chemical methods, they use herbicides and pesticides, which are capable of killing the plant itself, specifically for the plant. And lastly, biological methods. They employ arthropods and pathogens. And these arthropods, they act as, uh, they make use of hyacinths as their feeding grounds. And as for pathogens, these are, let's say, diseases that affect only hyacinth population. So now we have come to the end of our info video. So let me ask you, what can we take from all of this? I guess it is safe to assume that we as humans, we need to be we need to be in the very least knowledgeable, not only about how human and nature interaction can lead to severe consequences that may affect the ecosystem involved, but also about other factors such as the invasive species that may further impact the quality of life of that of the population involved. So that once we have this knowledge in mind, we can act accordingly and be able to preserve the quality of life of these water forms as they are of crucial benefit to our way of living. So I guess that about sums up everything. Once again, John here, bringing down the curtain for our info video. This is Group 9, signing off.